I just want to check my balance. The billionaire banker mocked the maid's daughter for entering his private sanctuary. He laughed while typing her grandfather's code, expecting a joke. Then the screen flashed, and the laughter died instantly. It looked like trash. A cracked leather wallet held by a 10-year-old girl in scuffed sneakers. To the billionaires in the lobby, Jenny Patterson was just a joke in a cheap dress. But inside her plastic folder wasn't homework. It was a charcoal-written code that hadn't been touched since 1952. She walked in simply asking to check a balance, unaware she was holding the master key to a national secret. When the arrogant branch manager finally typed the numbers, the laughter died instantly. The screen didn't just show a fortune. It signaled a hit squad. The air inside the First National Trust didn't smell like air. It smelled like crisp paper, floor wax, and old money. It was a cold, imposing scent that seemed to push against Jenny's chest as she pushed through the heavy revolving doors. She was small for her age, with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail that had gone slightly crooked during the bus ride over. The lobby was vast. The ceiling soared 30 feet high, supported by pillars that looked like they had been stolen from a Roman temple. In the center of the room, men in gray suits stood in tight circles, speaking in low, serious voices. Women in elegant coats held purses that probably cost more than the car Jenny's mom drove. Jenny stopped near the entrance. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She hugged the transparent plastic folder to her chest. Inside, a few papers shifted. She looked at the floor. It was polished so perfectly she could see her own reflection looking back up at her. She looked scared. "Don't be scared, Bug," a voice echoed in her memory. "You stand tall. You're a Patterson. We don't shake in front of anyone." Jenny took a deep breath. She inhaled the cold, expensive air and let it out slowly. She forced her chin up. She walked toward the main counter. The counter was a fortress of dark mahogany and brass. Behind it, bank tellers worked with quiet efficiency. They didn't look like the nice ladies at the grocery store. They looked like they were guarding the crown jewels. A security guard, a large man with a bored expression, stepped into her path before she could reach the velvet ropes. "Lost your parents, kid?" the guard asked. He didn't sound mean, just dismissive. Like she was a stray cat that had wandered in. Jenny looked up at him. "No, sir. I'm here for business." The guard chuckled. It was a dry, crackling sound. "Business? The candy shop is 3 blocks down, honey. This is a bank, a private bank." "I know what it is," Jenny said. Her voice trembled, but only a little. "I need to see a teller." "Look," the guard sighed, hooking his thumbs into his belt. "We have clients here. Important people. You can't just—" "Is there a problem, Miller?" The voice was smooth, deep, and carried the weight of authority. A man stepped out from behind a glass partition near the back. He wore a suit that was tailored to fit him perfectly, a silk tie, and a gold watch that glinted under the chandelier lights. This was Robert Henderson, the branch manager. He was a man who prided himself on knowing the face of every millionaire in the city. He certainly did not know this girl. The guard straightened up. "Just a kid wandering in, Mr. Henderson. I was just escorting her out." Henderson looked down at Jenny. His eyes were cold, blue, and calculating. He scanned her in a second, the cheap coat, the scuffed shoes, the plastic folder. He categorized her instantly. Waste of time. "Where is your mother?" Henderson asked. He didn't lean down. He spoke from his height, making Jenny crane her neck. "She's working," Jenny said. "Then you should go find her," Henderson said, turning away. "This isn't a daycare." "I'm not here for daycare," Jenny said. Her voice was louder this time. It cut through the low hum of the lobby. A few heads turned. A woman in a fur coat paused her conversation to look over her sunglasses. Henderson stopped. He turned back slowly, a look of mild annoyance crossing his face. "Excuse me?" "I'm here to access an account," Jenny said. She stepped around the guard. She walked right up to the mahogany counter. The top of it was almost at her eye level. Henderson let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a laugh meant to make her feel small. An account, Henderson repeated, looking at the other customers to share the joke. Did you save up your allowance, sweetheart? The piggy bank exchange is at the community credit union across town. We require a minimum deposit here that, well, let's just say it's more than your neighborhood earns in a year. The woman in the fur coat giggled. A man in a blue suit smirked and shook his head. Jenny felt her face grow hot. She felt the sting of their eyes. They were looking at her like she was dirt on their shoes. She wanted to run. She wanted to turn around, push through the doors, and sprint until her lungs burned. Courage isn't about not being scared, Bug. It's about doing it anyway. She remembered her grandfather's hand. It was rough, calloused, and shook sometimes, but it was the strongest hand she had ever held. He had given her the folder 2 days before he died. He had made her promise. Go to the First National. Don't take your mom. She'll be too afraid to walk in. You go. You're the brave one. Jenny placed the folder on the counter. I have the information here. I want to check my balance. Henderson sighed. He walked over to the counter, leaning his elbows on it, looking down at her with a mix of pity and irritation. Listen to me, he said, his voice low. I don't have time for games. I have clients waiting who manage millions of dollars. You are disrupting the atmosphere. Now, take your homework folder and leave, or I will have security carry you out. It's not homework, Jenny said. She opened the plastic snap of the folder. I'm calling the police, the guard grumbled, reaching for his radio. Wait, Henderson said. He held up a hand. He was enjoying this, in a cruel way. He wanted to see what was so important that this little girl would brave a room full of sharks. Let's see what she has. Maybe she has a coupon she wants to redeem. More laughter from the lobby. The cruelty hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jenny reached into the folder. Her small fingers trembled as she pulled out 3 things. First, she placed an old, worn leather wallet on the counter. It was cracked with age. Second, she placed a birth certificate. Third, she placed a small, silver key. It was heavy and looked very old. Henderson looked at the items. He raised an eyebrow. A wallet? Is this a lost and found? It was my grandfather's, Jenny said. He said the account is in his name, but he left it to me. And who was your grandfather? Henderson asked, picking up the wallet with 2 fingers as if it might be dirty. A janitor? Did he win a scratch-off ticket? His name was James Patterson, Jenny said clearly. The name didn't register with Henderson. He shrugged. Patterson. We have a dozen Pattersons. Unless he was the Patterson who owns the steel mills, I doubt he has business here. He wasn't a steel man, Jenny said. He was a soldier. A soldier, Henderson scoffed. Thank you for his service, but veteran benefits are handled by the government, not by private wealth management firms. He pushed the wallet back toward her. Go home, kid. Jenny didn't move. She pushed the wallet back toward him. He said to give you the account number, she said. He said you have to check it. It's the law. Henderson's jaw tightened. He was losing patience. The audience in the lobby was starting to lose interest, returning to their conversations. He needed to end this. Fine, Henderson snapped. Give me the number. I will punch it in. The screen will say, account not found, or show a balance of $5, and then you will leave. Deal? Jenny nodded. Deal. She opened the wallet. Inside, on a yellowed piece of paper, was a string of numbers written in shaky charcoal pencil. She read them out loud. 4, 7, 2, Alpha, 0, 0, 1. Henderson typed the numbers into his computer terminal without looking at the screen. He did it aggressively, hitting the keys hard. There, he said, looking at her. I typed it. Now the system is searching. It will take a moment to realize you're wasting my time. Jenny stood on her tiptoes, trying to see the monitor, but the back of the computer faced her. She could only see Henderson's face. She watched him. She watched the arrogance in his eyes. She watched the smug little smile playing on his lips. "You know," Henderson said, leaning back in his leather chair, "my daughter is about your age. She's in a private academy right now. She knows better than to interrupt adults. Maybe your mother should invest in some etiquette lessons for you instead of sending you on wild goose chases." Jenny bit her lip. "My mom works hard. She cleans houses for people like you." Henderson laughed. "I'm sure she does, and she probably does a fine job. But that doesn't mean you belong in the bank." Suddenly, the computer let out a soft ping. "Ah," Henderson said. "The verdict is in." He spun his chair around to face the screen. He was ready to read out the error message. He was ready to make a witty comment and point to the door. "Let's see," he muttered. "Account holder, James Patterson. Status." His voice trailed off. Jenny watched his back. She saw his shoulders stiffen. He sat perfectly still for a moment. Then, he leaned forward. He squinted at the screen, as if he couldn't read the words. He tapped a key, then another. He took a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his forehead, though it wasn't hot. "Mr. Henderson?" Jenny asked softly. He didn't answer. "Is it $5? She asked. Henderson didn't speak. His hand moved to his mouse. He clicked something. Then he clicked again, faster this time. Behind him, the lobby had gone quiet again. People had noticed the silence. They noticed that the arrogant manager had stopped talking. They noticed the tension radiating from the man in the suit. "Is there a problem, Robert?" A man in a gray suit called out from the waiting area. Henderson ignored him. He was staring at the screen as if he had seen a ghost. Slowly, he turned his chair back around. His face was pale. The smug smile was gone, completely wiped away. In its place was a look of confusion and something else. Fear. He looked at Jenny, really looked at her. He looked at her worn-out sneakers. He looked at her cheap pink coat. He looked at her blonde pigtails. He swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. What did you say your name was?" Henderson whispered. His voice was hoarse. "Jenny," she said. "Jennifer Patterson." Henderson looked back at the screen, then at the guard. "Miller." "Yes, sir?" The guard stepped forward, reaching for Jenny's arm. "I'll take her out now." "No!" Henderson shouted. The shout echoed off the marble walls. Everyone in the bank froze. The tellers stopped counting cash. The customers stopped talking. The guard jumped back, startled. "Don't touch her," Henderson said, his voice trembling. He stood up. He walked around the counter. He didn't walk with his usual swagger. He walked quickly, nervously. He stopped in front of Jenny. He knelt down on one knee. He didn't care about his expensive suit touching the floor. He needed to be at eye level with her. "Jenny," Henderson said. He sounded out of breath. You said you wanted to check the balance?" "Yes," Jenny said. "Grandpa said I had to." "Did your grandfather—" Henderson paused, licking his dry lips. "Did he tell you what was in this account?" "No," Jenny said. "He just said it was for the rainy days. He said he saved it from before the war, and after." Henderson let out a shaky breath. He looked back at his computer screen, which was still glowing with the numbers he couldn't comprehend. "Miller," Henderson said, without looking away from Jenny. "Close the front doors." "Sir?" the guard asked, confused. "It's 2 p.m. We're open until—" "I said close the doors," Henderson snapped. "Lock them. Put the sign up. No one enters. No one leaves." A ripple of shock went through the room. Clients began to murmur. "Mr. Henderson, this is highly irregular," the woman in the fur coat said, stepping forward. "I have an appointment." "Your appointment is canceled, Mrs. Galloway," Henderson said, standing up. He looked at the room of wealthy, powerful people. "All appointments are canceled. Everyone needs to clear the floor. Please wait in the reception lounge." "You can't be serious," a businessman argued. "I am deadly serious," Henderson said. He turned back to Jenny. His hands were shaking slightly. "Jenny, please," he said, gesturing toward a heavy oak door behind the teller line. The door that had a golden plaque reading Private Client Services. "Will you come with me? We need to verify some documents." Jenny clutched her folder tighter. "Can I see the screen first?" Henderson hesitated. He looked at the monitor. Then he looked at the 10-year-old girl. "I don't think—" he started, then stopped. "Okay, come here." He guided her around the counter. The tellers parted like the Red Sea, staring at the girl in the dirty sneakers. Jenny walked up to the desk. She looked at the screen. It was a black screen with green text, old-fashioned looking. At the top, it said, "Master Account, Patterson, James F., Colonel." Below that were lists of investments, bonds, gold reserves, land deeds, and at the bottom, in bold green letters, was the total available balance. Jenny read the number. She blinked. She read it again. She didn't know how to say a number that big. She knew thousands. She knew millions. She had heard of billions on the news. But this number had too many commas. "Is that—" Jenny whispered. "Is that real?" "It's real," Henderson said softly. "It's very real." "That's a lot of rainy days," Jenny said. "Miss Patterson," Henderson said, his voice respectful, almost terrified. "This isn't just a bank account. This is a national reserve level of liquidity. This account hasn't been touched since 1952. He looked at the old wallet on the desk. "Who was your grandfather?" Henderson asked again. But this time he wasn't mocking. He was begging for an answer. "Who was he really?" Jenny touched the screen gently. "He was just Grandpa," she said. "But sometimes men in black cars would come to our porch and salute him." Henderson's face went pale. "Men in black cars?" "Yes," Jenny said. "They called him the Architect." Henderson grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. He knew that name. Every banker who studied the history of the post-war economy knew rumors of that name. The Architect, the man who rebuilt the shadows. And here was his granddaughter, wearing a coat that cost $20, holding the key to an empire. "We need to make a call," Henderson said. "We need to call the board of directors. And we probably need to call the Pentagon." Jenny looked up at him. "I just want to know if I can take out $50. Mom needs groceries." Henderson looked at her, and for a second, he almost laughed. But it wasn't a mean laugh this time. It was the laugh of a man who realizes the absurdity of the universe. "So, $50, Henderson whispered. "Child, you could buy this bank. You could buy this street." Just then, the phone on Henderson's desk rang. It wasn't the regular phone. It was a red phone that sat on a separate stand. A phone that Jenny had never seen ring in any movie. Henderson stared at it. He didn't want to pick it up. "Answer it," Jenny said. "Grandpa said people would call." Henderson reached out a trembling hand and lifted the receiver. "This is Henderson," he squeaked. He listened for a moment. His eyes went wide. He looked at Jenny with pure horror. "Yes, sir," Henderson said. "She's here. Yes, sir. No, sir. No one has seen the screen except me. And her." He listened again. "Understood." He hung up the phone slowly. The room felt colder. "Who is that?" Jenny asked. "That," Henderson said, "was Washington." He looked at the door. "They said we have 10 minutes before a security team arrives to secure the asset." "Am I the asset?" Jenny asked. "No," Henderson said. "You're the target." Jenny felt a cold shiver go down her spine. She remembered her grandfather's other promise. If the bad men come, you show them the key, but you never give it to them. She put her hand on the silver key on the desk. "I'm not scared," Jenny lied. "Well," Henderson said, loosening his tie. "I am." He looked at the girl. He looked at the fortune on the screen. He looked at the fear and determination in her eyes. And something changed in Robert Henderson. He had spent his life serving the rich, bowing to bullies in expensive suits. But this girl, she was different. "Jenny," he said, "is your mom safe?" "She's cleaning Mr. Vance's house," Jenny said. "On the hill." "Vance?" Henderson spat the name out. "Vance is on the board here. He's one of the people who— Never mind." He typed something quickly on his keyboard. He printed a document. "Take this," he said. "Put it in your folder." "What is it?" "It's a transfer authorization," he said. "If anything happens to me, if those men take me away, you need to sign this. It moves the money." "Moves it where?" "To the one place they can't touch it," Henderson said. "Charity." Bang! A loud noise came from the front of the bank. The heavy glass doors shook. Someone was pounding on them. "Open up!" a voice shouted from outside. "Federal agents!" Henderson looked at the camera monitor. "Those aren't federal agents," he whispered. "Agents don't wear masks." He grabbed Jenny's hand. "Come on," he said. "We're going to the vault." "But my balance," Jenny started. "Forget the balance," Henderson yelled, pulling her toward the back. "We need to survive the withdrawal." The vault door was a circle of steel 3 feet thick, a masterpiece of engineering that weighed as much as a freight train. Henderson threw his shoulder against the internal locking wheel. He wasn't a strong man. He played golf, not rugby. But fear gave him a sudden, frantic strength. He spun the wheel. The tumblers fell into place. The world outside, the shouting men, the ringing alarms, the marble lobby, was instantly cut off. Silence rushed in to fill the space. It was a heavy, pressurized silence. The safety deposit vault was a long, narrow room lined with thousands of small metal drawers, floor to ceiling. The air here was recycled and cold. It smelled of dust and old secrets. A single strip of fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting long shadows. Henderson leaned his back against the steel door, sliding down until he hit the floor. He loosened his silk tie until it hung limp around his neck. His chest heaved. "They can't get in," Henderson wheezed, trying to convince himself. "Not without a thermal lance. It takes hours." Jenny stood in the middle of the aisle. She hadn't dropped her folder. She looked at the rows of boxes, then at the terrified man on the floor. "Mr. Henderson?" she asked. He looked up, wiping sweat from his upper lip. "Yes?" "You lost a shoe." Henderson looked down. His left foot was clad in a black dress sock. His expensive Italian loafer was back in the lobby, probably being stepped on by the men in masks. He let out a short, hysterical chuckle. "So I did. That was a $600 shoe." "My sneakers were $12, Jenny said, sitting down cross-legged on the linoleum floor opposite him. "And I still have both of them." Henderson looked at her. The absurdity of the situation washed over him. He was Robert Henderson, a man who drank scotch older than this girl, a man who controlled the financial destiny of Boston's elite. And he was currently hiding in a metal box with a 10-year-old child mourning a shoe. He took a deep breath and forced himself to sit up straight. He was the adult. He had to act like one. "Jenny," he said, his voice steadier. "We are safe for now. But we need to understand what is happening. You said your grandfather was the architect?" Jenny nodded. She opened her folder again. "He didn't talk about work. He just sat on the porch and whittled wood. But sometimes he'd get angry at the news." "Angry?" "He'd point at the TV when the men in suits were talking. He'd say, 'They forgot who built the foundation. They think the roof holds itself up.'" Henderson felt a chill. James Patterson. Colonel James Patterson. The rumors were that after the war, a small group of men had been tasked with stabilizing the global markets using assets recovered from places that no longer existed on maps. They were the architects of the modern economy. They were supposed to return the assets. Apparently, Patterson had kept one account, a failsafe. "The key," Henderson said, pointing to the silver key in her hand. "Does it have a number?" Jenny looked at the key. 404. Henderson scrambled to his feet. He walked down the aisle of boxes, scanning the numbers. 100, 200, 300. He stopped. Box 404 was larger than the others. It was at eye level. "Here," he said. Jenny stood up and walked over. She inserted the key. It fit perfectly. With a soft click, the lock turned. Henderson pulled the long metal drawer out. It was heavy. He carried it to a small viewing table in the corner of the vault and set it down. "Do you want to open it?" Henderson asked. "It's yours." Jenny reached out. She lifted the metal lid. Inside, there was no gold. There were no stacks of cash. There was a single, leather-bound notebook, and a stack of reel-to-reel audio tapes, and a folded American flag. Jenny picked up the notebook. It was worn, the leather cracked from use. She opened the first page. "It's Grandpa's handwriting," she whispered. Henderson leaned in, reading over her shoulder. The handwriting was sharp, jagged, and aggressive. "To Jennifer, if you are reading this, I am gone. And if you are here, the vultures are circling." Jenny turned the page. "I didn't steal this money. I held it hostage. In 1952, I saw men. Men like Vance. Men like the ones who will smile at you while they burn your house down, trying to turn the reconstruction funds into a private piggy bank. They wanted to own the future. So, I took the master ledger. I moved the funds to a ghost account. I became the architect, not to build their world, but to hide the bricks so they couldn't finish it." Henderson read the words and felt his stomach drop. "Vance," he muttered. "Arthur Vance, my boss." "Mr. Vance?" Jenny asked, looking up. "The man my mom cleans for?" Henderson stared at her. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "Your mother cleans Arthur Vance's house?" "Yes," Jenny said. "Every Tuesday and Thursday. She says he has a big library but never reads any books." Henderson paced the small room. "It's not a coincidence. Vance must have suspected your grandfather had the key. He hired your mother to keep an eye on the family, to search the house when she was cleaning." "Mom wouldn't let anyone search our house," Jenny said defensively. "She wouldn't know," Henderson said grimly. "But that's not the point. The point is, Vance knows who you are, and those men outside, they work for him." Suddenly, a loud, reverberating boom shook the vault. Dust trickled down from the ceiling. Jenny covered her ears. "What was that?" "They're drilling," Henderson said, "or using explosives on the outer lock." He looked at the notebook. "Keep reading, Jenny. Does he say how to stop them?" Jenny turned to the last page of the notebook. "You have a choice, Bug. The account requires 2 keys to unlock the funds. The physical key you have and a biometric voice code. Option A. You give them the key. They get the money. They will likely let you go, but they will own the city, the state, and everything else. They will win. Option B. You authorize the dead man's switch. It donates every cent to the National Debt Relief Fund and erases the account history. The money vanishes. They get nothing. But be warned. If you choose option B, they will be very, very angry." Jenny looked at Henderson. "What's a biometric voice code?" "It's your voice," Henderson said. "Or your grandfather's voice. Did he leave a recording?" "No," Jenny said. She touched her throat. He said I had his voice." Henderson looked at the interface on the vault wall. It was an old intercom system connected to the bank's mainframe. "The system is listening," Henderson said. "It's waiting for a command." Boom. The second explosion was louder. The steel door groaned. XT, First National Trust, Street, Day. The street outside the bank was a circus of flashing lights. Police cars had blocked off the avenue, but they were being held back by black SUVs. Men in tactical gear, who did not have police written on their backs, had formed a perimeter. A beat-up station wagon screeched to a halt at the police barricade. Smoke billowed from its exhaust pipe. The driver's door flew open, and a woman jumped out. She was wearing a faded gray cleaning uniform and a coat that was too thin for the weather. Her hair was messy, her face frantic. This was Susan Patterson, Jenny's mom. She ran toward the line of officers. "My daughter!" she screamed. "My daughter is in there!" A police officer stepped forward, holding up a hand. "Ma'am, you need to step back. This is a federal situation." "I don't care who it is," Susan yelled, trying to push past him. She was small, but she had the ferocity of a cornered lioness. "She's 10 years old. She went in there to run an errand. Let me through." "Ma'am, please," the officer said, grabbing her arm. "Let her go, officer." A man in a trench coat walked over from the black SUVs. He had silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a grandfather, but he smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. This was Arthur Vance. Susan froze. She recognized him. He was the man whose toilet she scrubbed, the man whose silver she polished. "Mr. Vance?" she gasped. "Mr. Vance, you have to help. Jenny is inside." Vance nodded sympathetically. He signaled the officer to release her. "Susan?" Vance said smoothly. "I had no idea it was Jennifer inside. What a terrible misunderstanding." "Please," Susan wept, grabbing the lapels of his coat. "Tell them to stop. Tell them to let her out." Vance patted her hands. His touch was cold. "We are trying to get her out, Susan, but she has locked herself in the vault with a very dangerous man." "Mr. Henderson?" Susan asked, confused. "But he's the manager." "He's a thief, Susan," Vance lied effortlessly. "He's trying to steal from the bank, and he's using Jenny as a hostage." Susan's face went white. "However," Vance continued, leaning in close, "we have a way to talk to them. If you can convince Jenny to open the door, to give us the key she has, we can save her." He pulled a radio from his pocket. "Will you talk to her, Susan? Will you tell her to be a good girl and give the nice men the key?" Susan looked at the radio. She looked at Vance. She saw the glint in his eye. She remembered the way he looked at her when she was cleaning, like she was furniture, like she didn't exist. She remembered Jenny's stories about Grandpa. Never trust a man who smiles while he holds a weapon. Vance was holding the radio like a weapon. "Let me talk to her," Susan said, her voice hardening. Vance smiled. He handed her the radio. The intercom on the wall buzzed. Static crackled. "Jenny?" The voice was tinny, distorted, but Jenny knew it instantly. "Mom!" Jenny shouted, jumping up. She ran to the speaker on the wall. "Mom, I'm here!" Henderson moved closer, listening intently. "Jenny, baby, are you okay?" Susan's voice came through, trembling with tears. "I'm okay, Mom. Mr. Henderson is with me. We're safe." "Listen to me, Jenny," Susan said. "Mr. Vance is here. He says if you open the door and give them the key, you can come home. We can go get ice cream. Just you and me, like normal." Jenny looked at the silver key in her hand. She looked at the notebook. "Mom," Jenny said, "Mr. Vance is the bad man. Grandpa wrote about him." There was a pause on the line. Outside, Vance glared at Susan, his finger hovering over the cut button on the radio. He whispered to her, "Tell her to open the door, Susan, or you lose your job, you lose your house, you lose everything." Susan held the radio. She looked at the bank, a fortress of stone. She thought about the years of scrubbing floors, the years of eating expired canned food so Jenny could have fresh fruit. She thought about her father, the colonel, who died in a chair on their porch because they couldn't afford a better hospital. She looked at Vance. She saw the greed. Susan Patterson straightened her back. She took a breath. "Jenny?" Susan said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Yes, Mom?" "Don't you open that door." Vance's eyes went wide. He lunged for the radio. "Don't you give them a single thing," Susan screamed into the microphone. "Burn it, Jenny! Burn it all!" Vance snatched the radio and smashed it against the hood of the car. He backhanded Susan across the face, sending her stumbling into the arms of the police officer. "Arrest her!" Vance roared, losing his composure. "She's an accomplice!" As the police dragged a screaming Susan away, Vance turned to his tactical team leader. "Blow the door!" Vance snarled. "I don't care if you have to level the building. Get me that key!" The silence returned, but this time it was electric. Jenny stared at the speaker. Her cheek was wet with tears, but her eyes were blazing. Her mother, the woman who always apologized for taking up space, had just declared war. Henderson was staring at the speaker too. He looked at Jenny with a new expression. It was awe. "Your mother," Henderson said softly, "is a terrifying woman." "She's a Patterson," Jenny said. The third explosion was massive. The heavy steel door buckled inward. A crack of light appeared at the edge of the seal. Smoke began to hiss into the vault. "They're coming," Henderson said. He grabbed a metal bar from a shelf, a heavy tool used for moving boxes. He held it like a baseball bat. "Mr. Henderson," Jenny said, "what are you doing?" "I'm buying you time," Henderson said. He took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around his arm as a makeshift shield. "Jenny, go to the interface. You have to make the choice, option A or option B." "But the money," Jenny said. "It's billions of dollars. It could help Mom. It could help you." Henderson looked at the crack in the door. He could see laser sights cutting through the smoke. "Jenny," he said, turning to her. "Look at me." She looked at him. "I have spent 30 years chasing money," Henderson said. "I have a big house that is empty. I have a wife who hates me. I have a daughter I never see. Money doesn't save you. It just buys you a more expensive coffin." He smiled, a sad, genuine smile. "Your grandfather was an architect. He built things to last. Greed doesn't last. Honor lasts." The door groaned. Sparks showered down as a blowtorch began to cut through the hinges. "Do it, Jenny!" Henderson yelled, stepping between her and the door. "Finish the mission!" Jenny ran to the computer terminal built into the wall. It was an old green screen monitor. It asked for a command. "Please verify identity." Jenny keyed the microphone. "Jennifer Patterson," she said. Voice print. Match. 48%. Insufficient match. Please state the passphrase. Jenny froze. Passphrase? Grandpa didn't write a passphrase. She frantically flipped through the notebook. Nothing. Just numbers and anger. "Think, Jenny," Henderson shouted over the roar of the torch. "What did he say to you? What was the code?" Jenny closed her eyes. The sound of the drilling faded into the background. She was back on the porch, smelling the cedar wood and the rain. She remembered watching her mother scrub the floor inside the house, on her hands and knees. "Grandpa," she had asked, "why does Mom have to clean up their mud?" Grandpa had stopped whittling. He looked at the house, then at the sky. "Because they don't know how to live without making a mess, Bug. Will she always have to clean it?" "No," Grandpa had said, his voice hard as iron. "Sometimes the dirt gets too deep. Sometimes you can't just scrub it away." "What do you do then, Grandpa?" He had looked her right in the eye. "You clean the slate." "Jenny!" Henderson yelled. The door was giving way. A metal boot kicked through the opening. Jenny grabbed the microphone. She didn't shout. She spoke with the quiet certainty of a girl who knew exactly what her job was. "Clean the slate," she whispered. The computer word. Voice print. Match. Confirmed. Passphrase accepted. Protocol tabula rasa. Welcome, architect. The screen flashed red. Option A. Disburse funds. Option B. Initiate purge. The door burst open. 3 men in black tactical gear stormed in, rifles raised. "Hands in the air!" they screamed. "Step away from the terminal!" Henderson swung the metal bar. He wasn't a fighter, but he was desperate. He hit the first man in the helmet, knocking him back. The second man swung a rifle butt, catching Henderson in the ribs. Henderson collapsed, wheezing, clutching his side. "Leave him alone!" Jenny screamed. Vance walked into the vault. He stepped over Henderson, wiping dust from his lapels. He looked at Jenny, then at the screen. Jennifer, Vance said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. Step away from the button. You're a smart girl. You don't want to be poor forever, do you? Think of your mother in jail. Think of how much bail money costs. Jenny looked at Vance. She looked at Henderson, bleeding on the floor but giving her a thumbs up. She looked at the screen. My mom isn't poor, Jenny said. She has something you don't. And what is that? Vance sneered. She knows how to clean up a mess, Jenny said. She slammed her hand down on the keyboard. But she didn't hit option B. She hit a hidden command key that her grandfather had scribbled in the very back margin of the notebook, a code she had only just noticed. Option C. The flood. The silence that followed the keystroke was heavier than the steel door. Vance stared at the screen. The red text of option C. The flood pulsed once, twice, and then vanished. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The fan inside the computer terminal whirred. The smell of ozone and smoke hung in the air. You stupid child, Vance hissed, stepping forward. He didn't look scared yet. He just looked annoyed, like someone who had spilled coffee on a rug. You broke the interface. Do you know how much that hardware costs? He reached for his radio to order his men to seize the girl. It wasn't the radio. It was the phone in Vance's pocket. Then, the phone in the pocket of the tactical leader rang. Then, the phone of the second guard. Suddenly, the vault was filled with a cacophony of digital chirps and vibrations. It wasn't just them. Through the open vault door, out in the main lobby, a chorus of ringtones began to swell like a rising tide. Every client, every teller, every security guard. Vance frowned. He pulled his phone out. The screen was filled with notifications, emails, text messages, news alerts. What did you do? Vance whispered. He looked at the old green monitor. Text began to scroll. Fast. Waterfalls of white text on black background. Transferring asset, Gold Reserve 44A to National Teachers Pension Fund. Transferring asset, Land Deed Sector 7 to Public Domain Conservation. Uploading file, Vance Offshore Ledger to New York Times, Washington Post, Interpol. Vance's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the table, his face turning the color of ash. No, he gasped. Stop it! Unplug it! It's too late, Henderson groaned from the floor. He was clutching his ribs, but his eyes were bright, filled with a grim satisfaction. You can't unplug a flood, Arthur. What is this? Vance screamed, pointing at the screen. That's my private ledger. That's confidential client privilege. Grandpa called it turning on the lights, Jenny said calmly. She stood with her hands by her sides, looking small but immovable. He said cockroaches hate the light. Vance lunged at her. You little... Sir! The tactical leader grabbed Vance's shoulder, holding him back. Sir, we have a problem. My command just messaged me. They're aborting the contract. They say our accounts have been frozen. I pay you! Vance shrieked. I own you! Check your balance, sir, the guard said coldly. Vance looked at his phone. He opened his banking app. He tapped the screen with trembling fingers. Balance. $0. Status. Seized. Evidence locker number 404. It's gone, Vance whispered. It's all gone. Not gone, Jenny corrected him. Moved to people who need it. Sirens wailed outside. Not the polite chirps of police cruisers keeping traffic away. These were the heavy, insistent sirens of federal transport trucks. Henderson chuckled. It hurt to laugh, but he couldn't stop. That phone call I made earlier? Henderson wheezed. To Washington? They said they'd send a containment team. I thought they meant for the money. He looked at Vance, who was staring at his phone in catatonic shock. Turns out, Henderson said, they were coming for the evidence, and you just gave it to them. The tactical team lowered their weapons. They were mercenaries. They didn't fight for free, and they certainly didn't fight for a man who had just been exposed as the biggest embezzler in state history on every news channel in the world. Vance looked around the room. He looked at the guards stepping away from him. He looked at the open vault door. He looked at Jenny. For the first time, He didn't see a maid's daughter. He saw the colonel. He saw the architect. "You ruined me," Vance whispered. "I am a pillar of this community." "You're a termite," Jenny said, "and we just fumigated the house." The scene outside was chaos, but of a different kind. The terrifying perimeter of black SUVs had been breached by news vans. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters were shouting, microphones thrust into the air. The front doors of the bank opened. The crowd went silent. First came the tactical team, hands zip-tied behind their backs, led by grim-faced federal marshals. Then came Arthur Vance. He wasn't walking with his usual confident stride. He was handcuffed, his expensive coat draped over his head to hide his face from the cameras. But the cameras found him. They captured the image of the billionaire being led away like a common thief. Then, a pause. A paramedic team wheeled a stretcher out. Robert Henderson lay on it, an oxygen mask over his face. He looked pale, but as he passed the cameras, he did something Robert Henderson had never done in his career. He gave a peace sign. And finally, walking behind the stretcher, holding the hand of a frantic, weeping woman in a gray cleaning uniform, was Jenny. She still held the plastic folder. She still wore the scuffed sneakers. "Jenny?" Susan sobbed, dropping to her knees on the sidewalk and pulling her daughter into a crush of an embrace. "Oh God, Jenny, I thought I lost you." Jenny buried her face in her mother's shoulder. The adrenaline finally broke. She wasn't the architect anymore. She wasn't a soldier. She was just a 10-year-old girl who had a very long day. "I'm okay, Mom," she cried. "I'm okay." The reporters surged forward, held back by the police line. "Jennifer! Jennifer! Is it true you released the files? Miss Patterson, how much money was in the account? What do you have to say to the banks?" Jenny looked up. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. She looked at the cameras, at the flashing lights, at the city skyline that loomed over them. She remembered Henderson's words. "Greed doesn't last. Honor lasts." She looked at the nearest microphone. "I just wanted to check my balance," she said into the silence. "But the machine was broken, so I fixed it." The room was quiet. A detective sat across the table. He looked tired. There was a coffee cup in front of him and a thick stack of papers. Susan sat next to Jenny. She held Jenny's hand so tight her knuckles were white. "Technically," the detective said, rubbing his temples, "what you did constitutes computer fraud, unauthorized access of a federal database, and, well, causing a panic." Susan stiffened. "She's a child. She was coerced." "I know," the detective said. He sighed. He pushed the papers away. "And honestly, we've been trying to pin Vance for 10 years. The files that accidentally got emailed to the Justice Department this afternoon, they're a gold mine. You did our job for us, kid." "Does that mean I'm in trouble?" Jenny asked. The detective smiled. "It means we're going to lose your paperwork. It happens. Bureaucracy is messy." He stood up. "You're free to go, but there's someone waiting for you in the lobby. He posted your bail, even though we didn't actually charge you." Robert Henderson sat on a plastic bench. He was still wearing his suit trousers, but his shirt was unbuttoned, revealing a thick bandage wrapped around his ribs. He had a cane leaning against his knee. The paramedics had given it to him for support. He looked older than he had in the bank, but he also looked lighter. The weight of the pretension, the arrogance, the need to impress, it was gone. When he saw Jenny and Susan walk out, he struggled to stand up. "Mr. Henderson," Susan said, rushing forward to help him. "You shouldn't be up." "I'm fine, Susan," he said, waving her off gently. "Just a bruised rib and a bruised ego. Both will heal." He looked at Jenny. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old leather wallet. "The police gave me my effects back," Henderson said. "But they found this in the vault. I swiped it before they could tag it as evidence." He handed the wallet to Jenny. "It's empty," Jenny said. The money is gone. The account is empty, Henderson corrected. The wallet, well, that's an heirloom. A reminder. He looked at Susan. Mrs. Patterson, I owe you an apology. For how I treated you. For how I treated everyone. I was a small man in a big chair. Susan looked at him. She saw the sincerity in his eyes. You saved my daughter, Robert, she said, using his first name. That makes you a giant in my book. Henderson blushed. He actually blushed. I've been fired, of course, he said with a wry smile. The bank doesn't look kindly on managers who help clients liquidate the entire reserve, and I suspect I'll be testifying in court against Vance for the next 5 years. What will you do? Jenny asked. Well, Henderson said, looking at the ceiling. I was thinking about that. The flood protocol moved a significant portion of the funds to a new charitable trust, the Patterson Architect Foundation. It needs a director, someone who knows how to manage money but no longer loves it. He looked at Jenny. I don't suppose you'd mind if I applied for the job. I'd have to answer to the board of trustees, of course. Who are the trustees? Susan asked. Henderson grinned. You are, and Jenny. Susan covered her mouth with her hand. Us? The trust pays a stipend to the trustees, Henderson said, his voice soft. It's not billions, but it's enough. You won't have to clean houses anymore, Susan, unless you want to. Susan looked at her hands. Rough, red, tired hands. She looked at Jenny. I think, Susan whispered, I'm ready to hang up the apron. XT. Patterson porch. 2 weeks later. Sunset. The house needed paint. The porch railing was still loose, but the foreclosure notice that had been stapled to the front door was gone. Jenny sat on the top step. She had a piece of cedar wood in her hand and a small pocket knife. She was trying to whittle, just like her grandfather used to. It didn't look like anything yet, just a stick with shavings, but she was patient. A car pulled up the gravel driveway. It wasn't a luxury sedan, it was a sensible, mid-range hybrid. Robert Henderson got out. He wore a cardigan and slacks, no tie. He looked like a grandfather, not a shark. He walked up the path, holding a box of donuts. Afternoon, Director, Jenny said. Afternoon, Trustee, Henderson replied, sitting down on the step next to her. He groaned slightly as his ribs settled. How's the whittling? Hard, Jenny admitted. I think I'm making a toothpick. Gotta start somewhere. Susan came out of the house. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Her hair was down. She looked 10 years younger. She carried a tray with 3 glasses of lemonade. Robert, she said warmly. You stayed for dinner? I'm making pot roast. I wouldn't miss it, Henderson said, taking a glass. And I brought the paperwork for the scholarship fund. We have the first batch of applicants. Any good ones? Jenny asked. A few, Henderson said. There's a kid in South Boston, 10 years old, wants to be an engineer. His essay was written in crayon because he didn't have a pen. Jenny smiled. Give him a full ride. Already stamped it, Henderson said. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky turned purple and gold. It was a quiet, peaceful evening. The kind of evening that money couldn't buy, but that courage could protect. You know, Henderson said, taking a sip of lemonade, I checked my own balance today. Jenny looked at him. And? It's lower than it used to be, Henderson said. A lot lower. He looked at Susan, who was laughing at something Jenny said. He looked at the girl who had walked into his bank and blown up his life in the best way possible. But, Henderson added, a genuine warmth spreading through his chest, I think I'm finally in the black. Jenny leaned her head on his shoulder. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of the world. Good job, Mr. Henderson, she said. Call me Bob, he said. Okay, Bob. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere, far away, sirens wailed in the city, chasing bad men. But here, on the porch, there was only the sound of crickets, the clinking of ice in glasses, and the steady, rhythmic scritch-scratch of a knife carving wood. The architect had built the foundation, but his granddaughter was building the home. And that is where we leave Jenny and Bob, sitting on a porch that feels richer than any bank vault. I hope this story reminded you that real value isn't always found on a screen. Sometimes it's found simply in standing tall when you're scared. I'd love to know where you were while this unfolded. Were you relaxing after a long shift, or maybe enjoying a quiet moment like Jenny's final sunset? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you, please hit like and subscribe to help us keep building this library of tales. Your support truly helps us stay in the black. Thank you for spending this time with us.